1.5 million households apparently facing a rise in energy bills. More could be at risk, is what we were hearing from Kwasi Kwarteng, actually, when he was sat just there the other day. We're told that energy prices will remain exceptionally high during this winter. Will they?
Well, we know that there are extraordinary set of circumstances that have built up with increased demand in Asia, with the fire in Ashford that's caused issues around getting gas over from France. But the majority of our energy actually is developed domestically and with Norway, about 80% between those two. So we're concentrating on prices. We're making sure that we have that supplier of last resort when companies are leaving the market, so that consumers can be transferred. The energy price cap is clearly keeping prices down, or even with those upward pressures for so many people and consumers around the country.
But those are artificially low prices, aren't they? And that is reviewed every 6 months, that price cap. That is undoubtedly going to go up.
Well, I mean, there are clearly pressures on that, but what it's still doing, what the energy price cap is still doing, it's still reducing prices, the cap for millions of people across the country by around £100, up to £100, depending on if it's single fuel or dual fuel. But yes, Ofgem, that we've had lots of conversations, the Secretary of State has, with companies themselves, with Ofgem, who, in reviewing that price cap, is clearly going to know that we want to protect customers, not just their supply, but clearly their prices as well.
What's your worst-case scenario about how much that price cap will have to go up in the next 6 months?
Well, as I say, these are all part of these conversations, because the thing is...
So you haven't even thought about it yet?
The thing is, they're all part of the conversations that Ofgem will set that cap at, because supply prices are based on a number of factors. And clearly, as government, we need to make sure that we're planning for the worst-case scenario, because we want to make sure that we can protect consumers. Well, this is what we're dealing with gas companies, with energy companies, and Ofgem at the moment. The Secretary of State has been in pretty well back-to-back conversations with them over the weekend and throughout this week to make sure that we can plan for the,
So what is the worst-case scenario
for the price cap? Well, that it goes on for longer than a short spike, and this is what.
But what does that look like in pounds? What does that look like monetarily for people who are already struggling?
I think that will develop. I can't give you a figure now because, as I say, that's really subject.
The reason I ask you is because the Joseph Rowntree Foundation can give us a figure, and as far as they're concerned, they're looking at their figures, and they say £1,750 is how much the cost of living crisis is going to increase for families who can least afford it.
Yeah, I think what you're looking at there, we were talking about this yesterday, is that's a wider piece of work that they're doing. They're looking at the cost of living in general. What the conversations that I was talking about was specifically
yeah, but a big part of that is fuel, especially at this time of year. You have to accept that.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely.
So they can come up with a figure. So why can't they?
No, but as I say, that figure that they've come up with is a rounded figure with a number of factors. It's not just talking about energy, and they've made some assumptions in that. What we want to make sure we have to have the very best evidence from Ofgem, from the energy companies, who are basically it's the energy companies that are setting their wholesale price or buying at wholesale prices. So they're the ones that are going to inform us of how we're going to move
Given
forward.
That you're aware of what they have been saying, they're saying that the cost of living, as far as fuel is concerned, can be comparable to what hard-pushed families spend on clothing and shoes for their kids.
Yeah, look, I come back to the point. We've got the Warm Homes discount for the lowest paid, for people on certain aspects of pension credit as well, who will automatically get that. We have the winter fuel payment, we have the cold weather payment as well. But that energy price cap, as I say, is still reducing prices by up to £100 for dual fuel use.
We have the universal credit payment. What are we going to do about that?
Well, look, I think
you guys are going to lose face, so you might as well just do it now.
Look, again, the Labour Party were pushing this yesterday without any answers about how it's going to be paid for, because the universal credit, it was there for an emergency situation over the pandemic.
An emergency situation.
It did the situation. Well, the Chancellor would clearly look at the whole gamut of public finances.
So it is something that you would look at.
I'm not saying that about the universal credit because I'm not the Chancellor, but he'll look at.
Would you pressure him to say, look at it again?
He'll look at the whole aspect of public finances in the budget and the spending review that is coming up. But If you were to reverse the universal credit as it is, you have to put income tax up by the equivalent of putting income tax up by a penny and
so you're saying it's either
3 pence on fuel.
Get rid of universal credit or put a penny on income tax.
You have to find £6 billion from somewhere.
Don't you think that most people would accept putting a penny on income tax so that people can put food in their kids' bellies and shoes on their feet and heat their homes? It's not one or the other.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that you have to find £6 billion from somewhere, and actually what you don't want to be doing, for the lowest paid in particular, is giving with one hand and taking in increased taxes in another.
We both know that income tax impacts on the top 5% most.
Most, absolutely it does.
Do you not think that it's up to them in these crisis situations, to be helping people who need the money most?
Well, as I say, the budget takes into account the public finances at the moment. What we're doing, we're increasing the national living wage. We've increased income by about 4,000 people, for £4,000 per year for the lowest paid in our society. That's something that fits within my remit. We are increasing wages as well. We're seeing wages going up quite rapidly in some sectors as well.
You're not increasing wages.
No, we're not. We're seeing it. Sorry, I should have said. We're seeing that going up quite rapidly in some sectors that have been underpaid for some time now, and that's very much to be welcomed. We want to also encourage people and find out what we can do more to link the record amount of vacancies to people that are out of work.
Universal credit, if I may. We understand all of those, and we talk about it a lot.
In general,
yeah, and the universal credit is an easy win for you. It would mean the world to the people who need it most. And if the government says, you know what, we've listened to you people who are voting for us on the red wall and behind the red wall, and as a result, yeah, we are going to keep it for another year at least.
This is something that we're looking at for the country as a whole. It's not red wall, blue wall, or any sort of political aspect.
So it's
making sure that we're doing the right thing for people across the country, especially the lowest paid in the country. And one of the areas we're looking at doing at the moment is reviewing the national minimum wage and the national living wage. That's coming up for consideration this year. And we'll take the view from the Low Pay Commission on what more we can do on there to meet our manifesto commitment.
But you're sticking with universal credit being scrapped?
Well, as I say, it was an emergency measure that did its job at the particular time, but the Chancellor will look at public finances and look at the cost of living in his budget in the spending review coming up.
It gets worse. We're hearing from Tesco. They're saying, the boss at Tesco is saying that shelves could be 10 times worse. They're empty already. They could be 10 times worse before Christmas, and that is because we haven't got enough delivery drivers to deliver the food around.
Yeah, so we're doing... there is a global issue, actually. It's not just a UK problem. There's Poland has something like 120,000 HGV drivers short, Germany 45,000. There are issues in Canada and elsewhere as well, other countries. So we're
viewers don't care about that. They care about what's happening here and the fact they can't buy stuff because the shelves are empty.
Absolutely, and we were in a cross-government meeting yesterday talking about it. We're talking about it on a regular basis, what more we can do.
And what can you do?
And so, well, one of the things that we're doing is there are a number of people, there are hundreds of thousands of people in the country that have HGV licences, either full or partial, that are not working at the moment, how we can encourage them back, how we can increase the number of tests to get more people through the system, which has been delayed because of the pandemic, and the changes that the Department of Transport have made will result in about 50,000 new tests over the year, but starting from now so that we can start to get them within the system. Well,
there's an easy fix, according to our man from Tesco. He says 14,000 HGV drivers left in the year to June 2020. Only 600 have returned. What we need is a temporary amnesty for bringing foreign workers back.
Which is why I started off talking about the fact that this is an issue.
Is that something we're looking at?
This is why I started talking about the fact that this is in other countries, because actually there's no guarantee. If you've got a shortage in Poland, if you've got a shortage in Germany and other countries around the EU,
my question is, should there be an amnesty?
There's no guarantee that actually, if you start opening up a route, that actually people will come back in, as the person from Tesco assumes. But clearly we'll look at all options in terms of short-term issues. The longer term and the medium term is something that the sector will work through, but we will help them do that by making sure that we can get more HGV drivers in the pipeline.
So you're saying it is something that you would look at, to have a temporary amnesty bringing drivers back from overseas?
No, I think one of the issues with temporary amnesties and issuing new visa routes, that actually takes weeks and months to open anyway. So it's not, it doesn't quite work that way. So by the time you've got...
You're the government, you're in charge.
No, by the time you've got systems in, these do take weeks and months to open anyway. And so actually, again, it's not quite the panacea that your
So you're saying no,
commentator
it's off the table?
We don't take anything off the table, but nonetheless, this is why we're looking cross-government to make sure that we can get, and with the sectors that are most involved, to see what we can come up with, both short-term and in the longer term as well.
You're here to talk about working from home and who it's a good idea for.
Yeah, and we're making consulting on making flexible working the default option, that people can request to work flexibly. That's not just working from home. It's become known as working from home during the pandemic, this hybrid working, but it might be actually compressing your hours. It might be working core time, but having flexible time, start and finish times, which is brilliant for caring. It's brilliant for childcare in particular. And other people, to give them the flexibility. And what that results in is a happier workforce, a more flexible workforce, and actually tends to lead to more applicants coming into job vacancies in companies that offer that kind of flexibility.
Not everybody's on board, though, are they? Ian Duncan-Smith says that civil servants need to get off their backsides and get back to work.
Yeah, but that's about the return to work. That's that simple binary thing about thinking flexible working is all about whether you're working from home permanently. Because basically, permanent working from home is living at work. I've done that myself when I was self-employed. And it's a novel idea for a little while. So yes, we do. We want to encourage people back to the workplace. It's not going to be necessarily the 9 to 5, 5 days a week in every workplace, but it's up to employers and employees to have a good discussion that actually works for both. Because you can't have flexible working in every single workplace, but nonetheless, as I say, if you get it right, you get a better workforce, a happier workforce, and ultimately a more productive workforce.
Just before I let you go, we've certainly had lots of doom and gloom during our interview today. A lot of parents are thinking, you know what, I need to take my kids away for half term if I can possibly afford it. These pesky PCR tests cost a flipping fortune. Are we going to scrap them? And if we are we going to scrap them in time for a half term?
That's absolutely the aim. We've got to get, again, systems in place because we want to move to a lateral flow test to make it easier and cheaper for people to be able to enjoy those holidays at half term.
But hopefully by half term?
That's the aim is later on in October. So we know that half term is looming. We know that people want to get away, but we also want to encourage business travel as well, because that's investment in the UK. It's investment in jobs and creating opportunities for people.